think everybody's still here. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what we've got going in the interest of time and other appointments, we're going to move one item up from its current spot to now, and that's number E1, an update status on the implementation of Community Risk Management Company Inspection Program. So let's go ahead and do that now.
Certainly, at your request, Chairman Soto, you had asked where the status of our company inspection program. As you recall, the company inspection program is the firefighters on duty going out and doing follow-up inspections, easy occupancies that aren't complex in nature, to get out and help alleviate some of the workload in CRM, but more importantly, to create training opportunities and to give a chance to get into some buildings to learn the buildings in your still district where firefighters are working and responding to. A very common program in the fire service, and so we've been working at getting that implemented for a little bit, and I'll turn it over to John, Fire Marshal Davis, to fill in on where that status is at and kind of a timeline.
Thanks for moving that up. I have another meeting to go to after this. So yes, as you know, we got bogged down during fire season, lots of hot work permits and all the other stuff that go along with fire season. Since we've thankfully back in the rain now, we're back on track, and the implementation of the company inspections is moved back up the priority list. And we, in fact, today we discussed some training in the office, and we're going to be getting together with Michael Duran and getting that scheduled again. At one point we had the training scheduled, and then life happens. And the training is going to be scheduled here in short order, and barring any train wrecks, that should be moving forward within the next 30 days or so. It just depends on, I'm not sure where we're at in the rotation of shifts. We're going to be rolling it out on Captain Sanchez's shift here at the main station first, just so we can roll it out with one shift at one station to get all the bugs out of it before we go to the broader department as a whole. So that's where it's at in a nutshell.
Okay. Well, with that said, that is all the components are all working, they're all ready to roll out.
The hardware is here. We've got the, I guess, for lack of a better word, the checklists that are on the hardware. And that's really why we want to roll it out to one shift at one station, to make sure we've got everything that we need on those checklists, that it's easy for the shifts to use, and answer those basic questions with one shift at one station, rather than have 5 stations with 3 shifts coming back. We're going to get those major hiccups worked out of it. But yeah, by and large, it's ready to go. The hardware is here. It's got all the checklists and all the program. The hardware and software are all ready to go. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to, not only is the purpose of the program to help alleviate the inspections that need to happen, but also it's my understanding that it gives our firefighters an opportunity to be in some of the larger buildings that they may need to attend in an unfortunate circumstance sometime.
Sure. You know, right now in CRM, we are really focusing on the higher hazard occupancies, the multifamily residential assembly occupancies, those sorts of things. The company inspections, they will be focusing more on the business and mercantile occupancies, lower risk occupancies, which right now we are not getting in those on a regular basis. Essentially the only times we get into those are when there's a new business opening, a tenant occupancy or tenant improvement. If they make changes inside, we get out there to inspect those. But just your normal business office that's sitting there operating year after year, those are the lower priority. Those we tend to get into those as we can. So the company inspections will be focusing more on those types of businesses.
And then just to clarify, this will not take a firefighter group out of their still district. It won't put them away from being able to respond.
No, they will be assigned to businesses within their response area.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they may be out of the station, but they will still
Right.
be in their response area. Same thing if they were coming back from a call or you know, had to do some training or what have you. They may not be in the station, but they will be in their district.
Very good. Thank you.
Abe, anything? Okay. Gene? Well, I just want to make one last final comment here, is that I'm extremely excited to see this at this point. It's been a long time coming. Matter of fact, it's been years in its in coming. But, you know, more than just code enforcement and the aspect of the community public relation of getting to know who these people are in these businesses, as well as the business owner knowing who their fire department, who their fire district members are, is extremely important. But above all that, firefighter safety, as Corey alluded to, firefighter safety within these occupancies is paramount, and we cannot overlook that and wait a minute longer. And they do need to get into all of these buildings at some point to ensure that they're aware in the event that they have a fire or an emergency in those occupancies. So it's a win-win program all the way around, and I am excited to see it come to fruition. So looking forward to it.
The time for them to be in those businesses is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when the lights are on and the building's occupied, rather than at 3 in the morning when it's on fire. At least they get a basic idea of the layout and the normal operations of the buildings and where the hazards are located, so that they have that frame of reference, like I said, at 3 o'clock in the morning when the roof's on fire.
Yes.
Just to add on to what Mr. Soto mentioned, going into the businesses and what have you, especially newer construction with parapets and gang nail construction and so on, and knowing where they are. Too many firefighters have lost their lives on collapse of construction from those periods of time. Of course, building codes have changed, but they still exist.
Oh, yes.
And knowing they're there and taking the proper approach will be beneficial, and certainly do that with the inspection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, we'll get back to the regular schedule, is public forum. Do we have any scheduled speakers?
I have not received any requests to address the board.
Okay, thank you. Next item up is our consent agenda. We have before us those items that are budgeted and ready to roll. So if there is, if I can get a motion to approve.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And any further discussion on those items? Nope. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Consent agenda is passed as presented. Also, if I may, for the record, note that member Ty Montgomery is absent. I don't know if he's going to come later or not. Okay. Next up is our financial report and updates from our finance director, Gabe Boldra.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you have the July financial report in your packet. So starting month of July, kind of a quiet month as far as finance goes. We did see $56,000 in property tax revenue for the month. Was about $17,000 under kind of our historical projections. Average collection for the month of July. Again, reminding the board that, you know, there's the ebb and flow of property tax collections, and so the first couple months of the fiscal year, we see very little collections, and then we get our first, you know, major, you know, influx of property tax around the September-October time period. Our non-levy revenue was at $305,047. That was over budget by $110,000. Two big things that contributed to that. One was our ambulance revenue was actually over budget by 74,000, as well as our non-district fire revenues are the two reasons why we saw that favorable variance on non-levy. On the expense side, we had a little bit of a overzealous and issues with the software on payroll expenses. The 1.7 million represents 3 payrolls for the month of July. However, only 2 are actually budgeted and 2 were processed. But the third one hit the accounting software on July 31, but didn't pay till I believe August 4th, which is that Friday. And just a little issue with training on the software, but all good. Next month we'll see ourselves really far under budget on payroll expenses because we do have 3 pay periods in August, but only now 2 will hit the financial statement in the month of August. So just a little bit of a timing thing on that. Vehicles and equipment, you can see we're just under budget at 55,256. Same thing with communications and utilities. I was under budget by 13,143. Managerial was over budget by 41,000. A lot due to timing of some payments that are due early in the fiscal year, as well as some retainer fees on audit prep services. And then finally, capital and contingency was at 21,612, which was 13,000 under budget for the month. I won't have a year-to-date report because there's still the month of July, but you will see we did expend 12% with 88% of the budget remaining. Again, the big reason why the large number is because of that third payroll. And then percentage of expenses, highest percentage personnel at 88, followed by managerial at 6, operations at 5, and the capital at 1%. And then finally, excuse me, year over year cash position. See, we ended the month of July with 5,138,000 in total cash compared to 3.8 million this same time last year. So we are in a much stronger position from a cash standpoint this year than we were last year. You do see other assets did decrease from 14 million to 13.3. Couple things. One of it's due to a lot of the due froms related to wildland, as well as wildland receivables are a lot less this year than they were last year at the same time, and that's just a function of timing on payments. Liabilities relatively unchanged year over year on the cash position. So unless there's any other questions.
Quick question, based
yes.
on the fire season we're having to date right now, would we see an increase?
Right, we will. Yeah.
Because it seems like we have more people out at this point than maybe we did last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there some problems with collecting that money as easily as we did last year, or is on time?
Well, it's a new budget year, so the money that the state has set aside for funding wildfires has been replenished. So we will. I'm assuming, given the wildland season that we're seeing, we're gonna have a similar situation that we did last year, where we'll be caught up on payments, we'll be getting paid, and then as we get towards the middle of the wildland season, that money's going to be gone, and then we're going to start to see longer time periods in between collections.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Well, with that said, I'll need a motion to approve the financial report. If anybody wants to give a motion.
I make a motion to approve the financial report as stated by our finance manager.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yeah, second that's
For the month of
July.
for the month of July.
The month of July.
We have a second with Corey, and any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, financial report passes. Staff items, Chief?
Board, in your packet, you have the July 2018 call summary, pretty coming along, 372 calls. So we've been probably averaging about 370 some calls a month as the average there. Nothing strikes me as out of the ordinary other than, the backcountry rescue type stuff. Went from 54 this time of year to 90, so that's a considerable increase that we've seen there. Just my gut instinct is we've not had any epic rescues in a while. You know, a couple that take a couple hours, which are, you know, a big deal, but a lot of them seem to be, you know, fairly, you know, I'll say quick and easy, but for lack of better terms, you know, they're not super time consuming. So the numbers are up. We're not finding that there's an extraordinary amount of time being spent on epic calls.
Along those lines, Chief, you know, to have a decent number of 23 for last month when it is supposed to be a slow season month for people who want to be out because of the heat. So I'm surprised to see that we're still doing a fair amount.
It might be the heat.
Yeah.
It might be the heat that caused
Very
that
good.
23.
Okay.
We did a lot of heat-related hiking issues in this, well,
Very good.
in this hot months.
Okay.
I did my best not to become one of them Sunday when I hiked Bear Mountain, and I understand how you can get hot out there in the sun. So with that, that's pretty much a summary as it sits there, and we're continuing to work on all that data collection, and we're trending a little bit, you know, overall 31 calls for the year. So who knows where we'll end up at the end? Nothing. Response by stations looks pretty much identical to what we typically see, with the exception of maybe Station 5 being a little bit more active than usual. We certainly spend our fair share of time this time of the year at Slide Rock quite frequently. For some of you that might be getting your Pulse Point app and following some of those kind of calls, you'll see the address at Slide Rock. Not to be confused with our fire station at 125 Slide Rock, but Station 5 Slide Rock it keeps us pretty busy this time of year. Calls of the day, year to date, you just kind of see that bell curve there, and pretty typical to what we see. 3 o'clock in the daytime is our busiest time of the day, and we lead up to that, and we tail down from that. Community risk management, you know, John just got back from a class at the Fire Academy out in Maryland, and had a great class there, learning some stuff in fire prevention and how to manage the programs as a whole, and got some really good information there. But with that, when we have people on vacation this time of year, people in a class like that for a week, they were at an arson investigation class for 3 or 4 days. I mean, it takes into some of their ability to do those inspections. So when you start seeing some of those lines up and down, depending on where they're at compared to years past, we've definitely put a pretty premium on education and getting them, you know, the education they need to work smarter and you know, smarter back here at the office. And so that comes with less inspections. So you start seeing those bars down. They've done a lot of training recently, which is good stuff. You see our plan review in the second box there. Certainly keep them pretty busy with planners. If you look at those yellow bars across the way, and then even the average, I mean, we're definitely pretty busy with plans review and keep them busy. Our compliance is kind of, you know, trending up a little bit, but fairly flat overall. That's not a large spread on that graph there. Let's see. So excited to talk a little bit about the Northern Arizona Healthcare Foundation as it relates to grants. We were awarded a grant for $16,000, and that's to cover the community paramedicine program. And Ed, we were going to talk about that now, or where we're going to talk about that later? I forget.
Whenever you choose.
So just one of your criterias was when we went into the community paramedicine was to try to find alternate funding sources. And so we've been working, Chief Missoula's been working extremely hard to try to find that revenue source. We were granted $16,000 towards that, and it's a huge step. And so just briefly, if you want to tell us anything about that as it relates to that, no action items, just information here.
So working with our partnering community paramedic agencies, and right now that includes Verde Valley Ambulance and Guardian Medical Transport and Flagstaff. And working with the hospital and the NIH Foundation, they secured this grant, and each agency participating and actively seeing patients through their software system that we utilized were awarded $16,000, and to cover associated costs with community paramedicine. And we sat down last week as the the receivers of the grant funding we're building out a fee schedule, and we're going to send it to them for approval, because we'd like to have some concrete numbers and an invoiceable mechanism when we utilize or request these grant funds. And ultimately the goal is, for years to come, if we establish a fee schedule for the program, then it's just not numbers out in space. There's an established fee schedule, and in some communities around the country, not yet in Arizona, are actioning opportunities with private insurers and primary care physicians for fee schedules. So our thought is, if we establish a fee schedule that we all adopt and then work with NAH, it'll lead to the likelihood that we'll get hopefully continued grant funding or open up for opportunities with private insurers.
So it's been a pretty big nut to crack. So for us to get this done has been no small feat. And I certainly, last month we talked about a $23,000 grant or so for some jackets, high visibility safety jackets for our folks, $16,000. I can't guarantee I'll bring back every month a cool grant, but that's the level of which we're working every day to try to find opportunities to find revenue sources and ultimately reduce impact to taxpayers and the like. So while we weren't successful with a Type 3 engine, which we'll be talking about purchasing today, we tried that, we're denied, and things like that, and we had another denial for something else. My brain's not there right this second, but we had two denials for grants on that, but you win some, lose some, but we're working hard at that, and so very proud of our team for that. So question?
Chief, could you sort of give us a capsule for the viewers who may not be up to date on what a community integrated paramedicine program is?
Absolutely. So there are many different versions of community paramedic programs. Ultimately, the Sedona Fire District's tasked with emergency medical response. You call 911 and we show up and mitigate the emergency. Throughout the nation, there's been a recognition that and overutilization or improper utilization of 911 services. In addition to that, many folks in the community just utilize our services as a Rolodex because they just don't know who to call, and we have answers. So with Eric Walter, our community risk reduction specialist, and our partnership with Northern Arizona Healthcare, essentially we onboarded with the software system that the hospital uses for patient care reporting. And what happens is if a member of our community is transported to the hospital, and there's a criteria, and if it's recognized that they may have some substantial obstacles to getting well, whether it be rideshare programs, opportunities for food, just basic knowledge of the medical system, the hospital will refer them to our community paramedic, and then he'll get an inbox, a patient load, review them, and then he schedules appointments with those patients up to 4 visits and make sure that they understand the resources available, their discharge orders. And that's just for the general patient population. We also have a partnership with the Joint Replacement Center, and we've been tracking for a few years the reasons why our citizens go back to the hospital, and one of the big ones is related to fall injuries. And so naturally falls break things, and post-fall people think they're good, the hip's healing, and then they fall again. So with our partnership with the Joint Replacement Center, we do a quick 2-week or 2-visit, sometimes just by phone, depending on the person's resource needs, and ensure they have a walker or cane, ensure that they are getting to physical therapy and doing all that. And we're working on data, but the hospital's seeing some reduction, and the Joint Replacement Center, the physicians there have been really happy with the service. And then lastly, what we've been doing is we have a procedure built for our crews. And if our crews go out, we'll sometimes go to the same home a couple times a day for somebody that's starting to fall, and that's a difficult, or starting to have problems, and that's a difficult thing for folks because you don't want to give up your independence. And if anybody finds out, my daughter will put me in a home, is the line we hear a lot. So what we do is our crews have a criteria, and if they they recognize somebody that's just not hitting the mark and has some needs, they'll refer them to our community paramedic. And in a non-emergency setting, one person will go out and help them navigate the system, and we've had great successes with that, and get the crew back in service. And lastly, our hope is partnering with some of our, this will roll out as the program develops, but if we could partner more efficiently with some of our primary care providers in town, then we could be a conduit for them to ensure that their patients are following their protocols and getting everything done so they stay healthy. So that's the gist of the program without a long PowerPoint and slides.
Right.
It's such an important program and such a service to the community. It's my understanding you also assist people with, they come home many times with quite the list of meds they need to take. And it can be quite confusing to someone, and you assist with that as well.
Absolutely, and the best way to describe it is our community medic goes out and it's that one-on-one attention in a non-emergency, non-threatening setting, and we understand, we're fluent in doctorese, but we don't speak to doctorese. So when we speak with our patients, we can speak to them at a level that makes things a little more understandable. And although we're quote just paramedics, I mean there's some phenomenal physicians' desk references and medicine apps, and we go and we do what's called a medicine reconciliation, and we make sure that and we have found that they have 3 doctors and 2 doctors are prescribing a similar med, and then we'll call the physicians and say, hey, we want to reconcile these meds, and we've helped folks out. So we don't change dosing, we don't prescribe anything, we help them navigate, because you get 15 bottles of pills and it's difficult.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Chief.
Question, Chief, on that is that every firefighter on board has that capability of doing those things? Is everybody a paramedic?
everybody involved with the program. If you're involved with the program right now, we have one person assigned to it. He is a paramedic. We did work with our physician at NAH and the community care network at NAH, and we developed a 3-day extra continuing education course that kind of outlines some of the specifics of community paramedicine, and we're working on redeveloping that class. We found it was not enough time, but no, not every medic is right for being a community paramedic. Just like every physician in the world can't be an ER doc or a trauma surgeon. And so with the medics that we send out, the medics that Verde Valley Ambulance sends out, it's folks that want to do it, that have a desire to do it, and then have the critical thinking skills to do it. Because a lot of what we see in the community paramedic setting, if we were there on a 911 call, we would want to transport them. And it's for the community paramedic, it's really learning that people live with swollen ankles and people live with difficulty breathing, and they kind of, the right people for community paramedicine have to have the ability to slow down their thought process a little bit. And so not every medic would be a good community paramedic.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
And board, just to final this discussion, just so this is not a Sedona-centric only, idea, brainchild. This is we are not the brainchilds of this at all. This is a very common best practice that's kind of been taking over fire district or EMS rather across the nation, and so we're just part of a much larger program and trying to help be safe, friendly, and dedicated for our community. And the response is overwhelming and positive. And so with that money in the grant, we'll help offset some of those costs, and we'll continue to look for shoring up those costs in a long-term way if and whenever that's possible. And there's lots of work. Ed's going to a conference this tomorrow or whatever next day, and they'll be talking a lot about this type of stuff as well. So good stuff there, and I'm going to continue with my report unless there's anything else. So training information, you see the training that's there. We talked about Fire Marshal Davis and Inspector Evans going to an arson investigation class. Tammy Sherman attended the ESRI user conference. She continues to really work in the GIS world and understand all the different opportunities and things that GIS brings, and she's doing a really great job with that and her role. And we also sent a couple guys to do the car seat installation. Again, it's another 40-hour class to learn how to put a car seat in. So if you remember the graph about inspections and where they are, you got to balance all these things out. With that, a couple thank you notes are in the mix here. I think one of which is the second one where it says giving you an A+, where Miranda kindly says, "Dear first responders, my name is Miranda, and I'd like to thank you for saving my dad from his heart attack on July 6th. My dad is now home and recovering quickly, thanks to your speedy arrival and trained paramedics. I'm very grateful to you and the work that you do. Thank you, Miranda." We'll be working further on this story. There's definitely a whole backstory on this piece, but the paramedics were able to revive her dad, and he's making a full recovery, and so we'll be taking this through, and I believe we're hoping this will be our first survivor story, and we've got numbered coins that we're going to be giving out to survivors, and so we're working on this story. But I just think since it's in your packet, I want to let you know that this it's not the first person we say by any means, but for a 12-year-old, I believe she is girl, to write the thank you note saying thanks for saving my dad, kind of puts it in perspective, I guess, for me anyway. With that, a couple other activities. No significant incidents around the district. We've got quite a few wildland folks, as one of you has just mentioned earlier. I'm not sure it was more wildland folks out today than we did this time last year necessarily. It was pretty busy last season as well, so it's just wildland season. We're at the peak of it. We've got firefighters in California, Idaho, Montana. They were in Washington. I'm not sure where the Klondike fire is right now, but a couple guys got relocated to the Klondike fire. We've got, there's like 10 guys out right now. So pretty significant. And that's true of all the other agencies around us as well. Everyone has units out right now. So it's all hands on deck. We're at the PL5, which is the highest warning or awareness level, if you will. Chief Coyle is on his Type 1 incident management team. He is in, I believe, Montana, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe going to Idaho, though, for a meeting tomorrow with they're going to have the U.S. Fire Administrator and FEMA's leadership come in and check out the whole system. It's the first time that's ever happened, so he'll be integrating with those folks and talking about the system at a pretty high level, people from FEMA and U.S. Fire Administration. So I believe the U.S. Fire Administrator actually recently said that wildfire is America's fire problem, and that's a pretty big statement to make. Anyway, we'll think about our folks on those calls and out doing the work that they're doing, and we're certainly keeping people up to date on Facebook. We just got a couple guys extended. They've done their 14 days, and now they just got another 7 or so. They won't be back until like November 3rd, I think they said. September, sorry. November 3rd is a long way. September 3rd. There's a couple months in there I missed. So that is all I have for significant incidents. Anything else in the district? I will say, as Battalion Chief Cochran is here, he's kind of leading the charge in my mind as it relates to drone use. He continues to use the drone and have some very, very good success with the drone. We had a report of smoke up by the cow pies, I guess, technically, off Schnebley Hill Road, and he was able to leave the engine down and fly the drone up, look right on top of where the fire was, get a full 360 of what was happening, and what we did or did not need to do is to take action and leave that unit down at the bottom of Schnebley and in service and available if we needed to, and things like that. And the drone program is just limitless on how far we can take it. But I do really want to say thank you to Battalion Chief Cochran, who's really taken an interest in this program and really done some really great things with it. Every time I talk to him, I had the drone out last night, we did this, drone out there, we did this. And so thank you for that. Upcoming events, we'd like to announce today that we have a pancake breakfast scheduled for August 29th at station number 6. It's a Wednesday morning, 7:30 to 9:30. We would like to invite the community out to enjoy some pancakes, a little bit of sweetness, maybe some fruit for the healthy ones, and we'll be out there just having an open house pancake breakfast on Wednesday the 29th, 7:30 to 9:30. Love to see the community out. We'll be putting that out on social media tonight and getting that going, as we're about a week away. And come one, come all. And we'll look forward to seeing people there and just bring the community together. So we're excited for that. 9/11 is coming up. I don't have a meeting before then, so don't forget we'll be doing a 9/11 event. I think it's just going to be a more informal at Station 6 at the 9/11 Memorial at 9/11 in the morning. We'll have a couple speakers. We'll do our thing out there at the flagpole and the memorial site, and probably be 20-25 minute type event at this point in time, as it's a the anniversary of 17 years. So unless board has any other direction for us to take on that and take it to some other level, but we are not planning a large to-do.
I was unaware that we were already planning for it, but yeah, I think we'll go with that.
Thank you for that. We are scheduling an open house October 13th. That'll be during Fire Prevention Week. Very common time for us to be having open house at our fire station. We've not decided quite yet where we're going to do it. If we're going to do it at Station 1 and Station 3, since we'll just have kind of done an open house at Station 6, or we'll just do one of the stations. We're still working on it, but the date will be October 13th. So please mark your calendars for that, and we'll look forward to getting the time and dates out for that.
Chief, is there any reason why you just can't have open house for all the stations all on one day?
We certainly can, if that's the direction you'd like.
I mean, it gets it all done and over with, and
It's incredibly difficult to staff that.
okay.
And so for us to be able to keep some people in the station that are off duty to staff all 5 stations, parking at Station 5 is incredibly difficult. So it's very complex to try to do something at 5 in any case.
Okay.
We will have just done an open house at station number 6
Right.
next week. So that's where the 1 and 3 come in. And I think we can get some people in to help staff those. So when the firefighters are on duty, leave on calls, that we don't have an empty station and security issues and things like that. So that's our plan, but I certainly have a little time, so we can, take direction as you see fit. But I would think that doing 2 stations is going to be a challenge
Okay.
enough. I'd like Heidi to maybe say a couple words. We've got Pam Wester, who's leaving Sedona Fire District, and if you could just say a few words.
I would be happy to. I'd be happier if we weren't saying this. Pam Wester has been our finance specialist for 12 years with Sedona Fire. She's found an excellent opportunity for growth and some new potential for her that she's excited and a little nervous to take on, but we're supporting her and excited about it. So we will be working with JVG, our finance director, to help fill in the gaps, redistribute some work, and figure out our game plan going forward, whether that's replacing the position, finding a new way to do our workload. So we're working on that right now and figuring out how things will continue business as usual. But we wish Pam very well, and we will certainly miss her.
Just echo that. Pam's been a wonderful, dedicated employee to our organization for a long time, and we certainly don't want to see her leave, but certainly do appreciate her interest in upward mobility and challenging herself professionally. And we support that at any level in our organization. And so we're proud to see her take everything she's learned here and move on and challenge herself in new ways. And so we'll miss her a ton, and we thank her for all of her service. And I know you guys work with her quite frequently as she helps with paying the bills. So,
Chief, will she bird dog for a while until they get someone new in the position, or what?
well, a bird dog is probably not the term I would use, but that's probably what we get. I know what you're talking about.
I'm sorry, I'm old, what have you. It's an old time fire.
I'm looking it up right now. I'm
fire
Googling bird
department
dog. No,
term.
I know. So go ahead.
So our current plan and the most vital role for us in this season is wildland billing. And so Pam, we're probably going to continue to contract with Pam. She's offered to do so to help get our guys that are used to working with her, all the details, her work with the state and feds, that she knows all the processes. So we're gonna work with her. She's training in Branda Brothers, who is our payroll and benefits specialist, and she's willing to take on that learning process. So they're working on that now. They began that today. I've been working with Pam on accounts payable and working on some of those pieces. And again, we're kind of pulling it together with JBG that will pick up a large part of the processing and the higher level finance activities. And then yes, Pam's been great with training us, making sure she's got procedural manuals ready for us so that we can carry on and make new assignments as needed.
Thank you. I'm sure we can add bird dog to the lexicon for the fire department.
No, I've heard the term. I just that wasn't one I've used before in a meeting. Anything else, board?
You know, Chief, I'd like just to add, you know, it takes quite a while to build an administrative staff to come up to that level so it operates smoothly, seamlessly, all the while knowing that you have to continually develop your crew, if you will, to the point that if there's something that will improve their background that's outside, it's behoove you to point that out. And so often, as the case is here, she has found something to fill maybe a void that she needs to develop, and she's doing that. But for us, it leaves a hole. And we can only hope that those who fill the hole builds on the groundwork that she laid, and we become even stronger or better. And I could see that with this group. I have no doubt that's going to happen, and I wish her well in her endeavors. So congratulations to Pam.
Certainly, she's left a manual that's pretty particular and meticulous, and Heidi said there's every step, every procedure, every file. She said we will find anything and everything we need very easily. She's that organized and that good. So, and just to reiterate on what Heidi said, is currently we're, in the interim trying to figure out what we can do with JVG. So they're going to help with an interim assist type of program, and then if so chosen, we'll be coming back to you with a contract and a consideration for a long-term arrangement with JVG. If that's what we decide to do. And so we're in discussion with what that looks like and things like that with Gabe and his group. And so we're trying to get our game plan going forward.
Would that be with accounts payable, receivable? What would that,
Yes.
what part are you
All of it.
particularly? All of it?
Yes. Which Gabe does. I mean, I will bring this on an agenda item later, but Gabe does this for 4 other agencies currently. So it's not, we already talked to him and been doing our legwork since we were notified this a week ago. It was going to happen. We've been doing our due diligence and trying to really figure it out. So we're not at any level in our case super worried about that we're not going to be able to follow the path in which Pam has left us. The wildland, the bird dogging we need her to do will be good. And that did get me a little nervous. The rest of it, though, Gabe intimately familiar with what we do, a little bit of technology integration and things like that we're still working on. And we'll be back to you with that in greater detail and evaluate that option.
Very good.
Chief's presentation of years of service. Just want to recognize Assistant Chief Jason Coyle, who's achieved 20 years of service to Sedona Fire District. His career is incredible. He's done great things and continuing to do them. And we appreciate his role as acting interim assistant chief right now for operations, doing a great job. 15 years of service, Fire Inspector Richard Evans. So he's actually a firefighter who's been doing inspections through CRM, and he's got 15 years on the job. And so just recognize those people in the month in which those milestones occur. And that is my report for Fire Chief, unless you have any questions.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the discussion possible action review of approval of purchase order 11389 in the amount of $28,583.52 to Skaggs as awarded via Firehouse sub-grants to purchase high visibility jackets.
So board, one of the things I talked about earlier was we write grants. We were able to use the Firehouse subs grant program to secure a $28,583.52 grant for how many ever jackets that is, 80 some jackets or so. These jackets are what we would wear. It's a 2-layer jacket, so you can, if it's cool, you can have just the 1 layer. If it's colder, you can put the 2nd layer on. But the jacket does have a nice neon green hue to it. I think
Nice.
it's very green. So the intent, though, is that when folks are wearing those and we're out on calls and things like that, that we are clearly identified as public safety. Certainly if we're in areas where there's low visibility and moving cars and things like that, we want to be seen. This includes, I believe, vests also, some safety vests that are past due, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So it's just a safety piece, and $28,000 of money that does not need to be spent through the taxpayer, but through a grant in our, private public partnership stuff. So there's not much more to ask. They're really cool jackets. We should have brought one down for you because they're cool. But
So the way this works is we get this grant, it's paid to us, and
Correct.
then we purchase, and so we're showing a purchase order,
Correct.
writing a check
correct,
instead of them sending it to the company.
correct. That's whatever their process is for the grant. Pretty typical for grants anyway. So that's what's happening, and zero impact to our budget, but it's a pass through of sorts.
Okay. Possible action. I'll need a motion to approve purchase order 11389.
I move to approve purchase order 11389 in the amount of $28,583.52 to Skaggs to purchase high visibility jackets and vests.
Second.
Do you have second? Okay, second's made. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next up, for discussion and possible action and review and approval of purchase order 11325 for $313,405 and change to Boise Mobile Equipment for a Type 3 engine.
So board, if you remember the capital improvement plan and our goals and needs for Sedona Fire District, we currently have a Type 3 engine that's actually out of service for mechanical issues and safety concerns. So we are down a Type 3 engine right now. That really means that we're not super comfortable sending out a Type 3 engine on all these fires. So we've been sending out our Type 6. But in our plan, the capital plan, we've identified a need for a Type 3 engine. It's in this budget year that we intend to purchase this. And so the funding for this is out of our capital plan, which was funded through the budget approval process back July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And so the funds are in that capital budget. And the Type 3 engine was researched by our personnel and led by the one and only Battalion Chief Dave Cochran, who's here today to tell us a story about his Type 3 engine procurement process and any questions you may have either in a technical nature or in just bird dogging.
Bird dogging.
I'm gonna say it 3 more times.
So real quick, I guess we'll just start with most of the information was already contained in the board packet. So it kind of gives you background information on where we're at. This was identified several years ago. As with any capital type purchase, we try to forecast out ahead replacement schedules and that. The Type 3 engine has been on those replacement schedules for a long time. They've been bumped from year to year based on priorities of the budget and what we were able to purchase. We've just come to that point now where you can no longer kick the can down the road, and we're to the point where we're not able to go out, with the Type 3 engine. This year we haven't had the Type 3 engine available to go out. On a 5-year, and Gabe could probably chime in here, but on a 5-year average, we're averaging $55,000 to $60,000 per year in non-levied revenue just from the Type 3 engine alone. We didn't have that available to us this year. Not to say we weren't able to find other ways of trying to generate revenue with our off-district people, but not with the Type 3 engine. We've just come to that point now where it's time to replace it, and we're kind of there. The process is, over the last couple of years, we've been looking at different options out there as far as what's available to us and what would work for us for our needs and that. We've tried now twice unsuccessfully to write grants to try to get the Type 3 engine without using district funds, but again, like Chief said, unfortunately not like the Firehouse Subs grant for the jackets. We've just been unsuccessful, and so this year it's been added to the capital plan. We've decided to go with the CAL FIRE 34. It's a pretty exhaustive process that they go through to select. It's a tried and true model. We know it works. We've seen it work. We've worked with those guys. We've also had the opportunity, which we haven't had even when we were writing the grants previous to this. We looked at some different manufacturers. This year, CAL FIRE went with BME, and they put an order together for 30. And as part of that, BME has allowed other departments or districts to tag on to that bid. And so with their buying power of purchasing 30 their initial purchase of 30 engines, we were able to tag on to that bid process. It's also through the Houston Galveston area HGAC, which you guys have in the packet, as far as the process of getting it.
While you're on that subject, how much how much does that save us to be able to tag on to that big purchase?
You know, I don't know what the retail cost would be if we didn't have that purchasing power, but as you can imagine, it's kind of like buying anything at Costco. If you buy it in bulk, you get a lot less price.
Sure.
I do know that on our previous engines where we purchased, we've had an option for a cash price that would realize savings. So when we bought our Pierce, they said if you paid up front, you paid cash, you got a discounted, you know, such and such dollars. There's not an option with this because they're already giving us the discount because we're buying with that bulk power. And so
If I may ask, for the listening audience, could you describe a Type 3 engine? I know there are variations on it, but
right. So the Forest Service types vehicles based on size, capabilities, manning, that sort of thing. A Type 3 engine would be kind of the medium size, I guess in California we would call it like an interface type truck. It's 4-wheel drive, it's on an international cab, carries 500 gallons of water, and the pump capacity is 500 gallons. To put that a little bit in perspective, our engines out here can carry up to 1,000 gallons and have 1,200 or 1,500 gallon pumps on them. So it's kind of a smaller, more versatile for the interface type uses. The particular one we're looking at is 4-wheel drive. It's a 4-person cab, has some ladders for doing interface type work, and because it's 4-wheel drive, we'll be able to use it for some of our more remote areas, 525 roads, some of those other things where we don't want to take one of our big heavy Type 1 engines. We can keep those guys on the pavement and then use this type vehicle for going out. So if you see on TV or you see CAL FIRE or fires in California, many of those engines are Type 3 size or type engines, yeah.
thank you.
So board, this is replacing a 1999 unit, so it's run its course. You know, we talk about that 20-year lifespan type of stuff, so it's it's seen a lot of miles, been a lot of places, and the hard part. I met with a vendor when I was at a conference a few weeks ago in Dallas, and they said that the spec, they actually had to go out and because they got so many units, had to build a new factory to help build these orders. The chassis, because there's so many of them, and however the new distribution chain is like 10 months just to get a chassis, not a custom, nothing. It's just a stock international chassis. It's a different dynamic, and so I'm not sure how long it's going to take to get this engine. If it takes 10 months to get the chassis, I don't know if they're building the box and they just plop it on when it comes. I don't know what their build process is, but the sooner we get this done, the sooner we get in the queue, and the sooner we get a unit. And what Dave spoke about, the off-district revenue opportunities and the ability to, really pay for itself. That's certainly something engaging at this time of the year when we aren't as in dire need of a Type 3 in California and Wyoming and, Montana are. We certainly want to have that capability when we're in April, May, and June when we have that need. And so at this point, I'm not sure if we'll get it by our fire season next year or not. We'll get in the queue once we give them this purchase order and get this thing moving. And the procurement process, the Houston Galveston consortium, that's an RFP that's gone out, and so it's bid. So I don't want to miss that important piece. It's an RFP's been done, it's been bid, and we can tag onto this and meet all the procurement requirements of Sedona Fire and state of Arizona and best practice and everything else. So we bought our last couple engines off the Houston Galveston contract, as I think Dave said. So with that, I don't have any other questions. It will not be yellow with big CAL FIRE on the side. Sorry for those that might be interested in that.
No, but
Chief,
if someone's worked off of Model 34, it's identical.
Yeah.
The only changes we made to it were the seat configuration, and that's it. And that's just because of our travel times that we have when we go on fires. We have 18 hours. I went last year to Napa and our other Type 3, and you can't even read in the back of it because
Yeah.
so we changed some of the seating configurations, and that was also one of the recommendations of the manufacturer and the guys who run on them all the time. But outside of that, it's just a bone stock, no frills. It's a HV International chassis, which is what they use for snow plows and concrete mixers and everything else. So it's not by any stretch a custom, out of this world build. It's very utilitarian and it'll serve us well.
Chief, the current one again is at Fire Station 5,
No, currently it's sitting out back,
out of service.
out of service.
Okay, so, and it's approaching a 20-year life,
Correct?
and we're unable to maintain it, or we can maintain it, but the cost is prohibitive to do that. Is that correct?
That's been the determination.
Okay, so order it now. We don't get it for another year, so we really don't have anything.
We have a second type 3. Sorry, we didn't say that. We have two type 3s.
Okay.
We only have one 4-wheel drive,
Uh-huh,
and the other one's a 2-wheel drive.
right.
So we still have a 2-wheel drive that is available for us.
And is that
That
in
is
service?
Yeah, it's in service, and that's located
Canyon.
in the canyons. That is in the canyon.
At Fives?
No,
No,
up at
at
Station
7.
7.
7, okay.
Yep.
So we do
Stored there.
still have fire protection up there.
Yep.
We just don't have a reserve rig.
No, it's, we have two Type 3s. They're not necessarily reserve rig. They're two Type 3s as part of our wildland
Frontline.
urban interface needs.
Right, okay.
As well as the ability that when we do send one off district, that we still have a Type 3 ability in our town if need be. As we obviously have a couple lightning strike fires and things like that going. So these aren't reserves. These are actual, actual
Front-
primary trucks that we have. We just have two of them.
So, and as it stands, we are not sending any Type 3s out,
Right now, we are not sending any Type 3s
No.
out.
and we are minus that revenue normally generated when we
Well,
do.
yes and no. So we have a Type 6 that's out right now. So they called for Type 3s and Type 6s, and so we sent a Type 6 instead of a Type 3. So we're still sending a unit out. It's just a Type 6 gets less money per day on the rental and things like that. So
And a
and
Type
there's-
6 is more your pickup truck front end with a lighter duty
essentially,
pump and tank.
essentially, yep. So we're not missing anything, but there's some revenue opportunities, and there's reasons why we may want to be in a Type 3 at this fire and may want to be in a Type 6 on this fire, things like that. There's different fires that need different types of fire apparatus based upon terrain and objectives where the fire needs certain assistance and access to. And so some need will ask for 4-wheel drive Type 3s, some will ask for 4-wheel drive Type 6s, 4-wheel drive water tenders, some just ask for regular, so there's just a whole, the menus, it's interesting when they start calling. Our last order was for 40 engines that California said, can you send us 40 engines? Not Sedona Fire, obviously we could, but to the state of Arizona, and we had so many units out as a state that we couldn't even fill that order or request, so they went to, I think, Colorado and Texas to get those engines.
I know on a budget side, this has been pushed back a
Correct.
time or two, probably at least once, I know for sure.
I believe so.
So how long have we been saving for this rig, for this piece of apparatus? How many budget years have we put it on the schedule, and now we're finally gonna possibly vote for it?
So I'm going to turn this over to Gabe real quick. I'm going to give him the financial answer, and I'll give you the practical answer because he hasn't been here as long. But just talk about the capital savings and where we are with that.
Right. So if you remember, prior to last year or prior to this budget year, there wasn't a general dollar amount put aside for long-term or future capital purchases. The capital funding was all based off of budget surpluses, one from wildland, others from operational surpluses. So that's what has created this capital fund. If you remember from the budget process, I focused a lot on the need to develop this fund and develop, level funding for the plan. So, and as you remember too, when I was hired, my firm was hired 3 years ago, the district's reserve funds were relatively low. So it's really been over the last couple of years where we've started building a capital fund to be able to address these types of needs when they come up. And so as far as a number of years, I could definitely say the last couple of years, but it wasn't really till this year where we implemented that true capital replacement plan as far as these are the items we're designated for this time period, and this is the amount of dollars we need to save year over year to be able to meet everything on this goal.
So to further that, you know, we were on a kind of a cash pay-as-you-go model. So if we would have not been funding the capital plan like we are today, so previous years, we would have said, hey, we need a type 3, we need a type 1. We would have chunked in that money into the budget, and that's what we would have, and it would have been, I guess your answer would have been 1 year we've been saving, because that was just the year we allocated the funding. But we've been identifying it for years, and now that we're in this more level funding, although we have a kind of a ramp-up schedule to it, to meet all those needs that were identified as needs for the district, both in stations and remodeling of stations and taking care of the infrastructure, right, as well as our capital needs as it relates to equipment. We went through all this through the bond process, identified all those pieces, and so while that bond election wasn't successful, now we've just transitioned to say, okay, then we're going to begin to put away all this money for all these years to be able to buy all these things that we still need. Mm-hmm. And so we'll be putting in $1 million up to, I think we go up to $1.5 million at some point, if I'm not mistaken. And we just put that in every year, and then it ebbs and flows. And so some years we could have $3 million in our capital, and some years we could have $300,000 in the capital left after we bought.
We're making those purchases along the way.
We're making those purchases along the way.
Okay. Any other further questions or discussions?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I move to approve purchase order 11325, utilizing the CAL FIRE HGAC joint purchasing agreement for $313,405,000 $405,405.57 to Boise Mobile Equipment for the purchase of a BME. Sorry, my tongue is blank.
Type 3 engine.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Motion carries.
Thank you. Nice job. Thank you to Battalion Chief Cochran and his committee who put this together and did a lot of hard work, and certainly I think the utilitarian comment that he made is this won't be anything fancy. This is down and dirty, get it done.
It is going to be as you described, but it is an apparatus that will carry us.
It's functional, very functional.
For a long, long time.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely
It's a workhorse.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for your work on that. Okay, next item up is the discussion, possible action to review and approval of the 2017 annual report.
So board, before you submitted an electronic version, and then the actual more final copy is what was handed out to you today. Just a couple grammatical things that we did a once over, and we made that. Certainly, based upon the timing of everything, we've talked a couple things like our company fire inspections and the timing. We had Tricia, who was here through March of this year, I believe, and as she left and transitioned out, and Carrie came in and we began to learn the ropes here. Well, annual report was a priority for us. It certainly was not at the front burner, and so she's been diligently working on this in between every other thing we throw her way, and she's learning about the district and such. And so I'm honored and proud to present to you the 2017 annual report. Well, certainly not in the time frame that we normally present our annual report in, just given our circumstances and the priorities that I've given to Carrie, and then as Heidi's come in, this is a great report in my opinion that highlights our year's activities, and Carrie's now fully ready and capable and excited to start the 2018 annual report, she says, right? No, she didn't say that. I thought I heard her say that. So I don't intend to go over any of the highlights in there. If any of you certainly do, I'd be glad to ask or answer any questions about that. Heidi certainly was involved in that as well. And between the two of them, they certainly were able to put together both the graphic appeal, the wording, and the flow as such. And we'd like to change it up a little bit here and there, and they all look different every year, which I think is kind of neat in some ways. And with that, I'll ask for any questions or anything of that nature. Carrie, you want to say anything? Come on, Carrie. You had the most fun doing the annual report?
It was very fun.
Fun and challenging. Heidi, would you like to add anything?
That sums it up.
Well, I think it's beautiful and informative. I like the way there's the roster of everybody who works for the district. That's a really nice touch. There's budgetary information there, comparing our budget to other times. And every single operation that SFD performs is highlighted. With what I also love is the personal stories that are woven in. That's a very nice touch. So all in all, I think it's fantastic. I like the typeface too.
We had lots of discussion about that. Thank you for noticing. So, yeah, the stories are a nice touching. I think it was that Carrie that brought that. Can we credit Carrie to that, I think. So, you know, we get lots and lots of letters and nice little pieces. And, you know, I think that the end, you know, with Captain Benetton riding the horse, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't make these stories up. I mean, so they're on a call where, you know, a lady falls off the horse, we transport her, and then we're like, what do we do with the horse? Like, I don't know, I had no training. And Captain Benetton says, well, I can ride a horse. So he hops up there and rides the horse and takes it back to the stall or wherever they had to get to the lady's house, I believe, and put the horse back in the barn.
And it was a friend of mine's horse, too.
And it was a friend of yours horse. Oh, I didn't even know that. So we would have treated them just the same, but nice to know that things are well, and we help everyone out in the community. But just things like that are just neat. And, you know, the picture of, you know, the story about us going back and mopping up after some folks and cleaning up a mess that was left behind when someone was, you know, having a really bad day. Things like that are really, you know, just it just says a lot about what we do. Because if you're doing those small things that well, I can only imagine, and I'm sure you can imagine the great things that happen when we're doing, you know, big things. So proud of our folks. They work really, really hard each and every day, providing the best service they can to our community with a smile, with professionalism and dedication, and you know, to get that all into one report and have it really feel that way. We do the best we can, but I wish we could harness more of it. I wish it could be. I don't know how to do it, but that's a great job, but there's so much more to it. And I'm just really proud of our folks. So thank you to Carrie and Heidi mostly for putting that together.
Yeah, I think it's a great looking report, but it also tells a good story, as you mentioned. Also, it also shows on the last page that our district is a young district as far as the members that we have. I mean, almost half of our membership is 10 years or less, and of
Yes.
that, you look at 5, and about a quarter of them are 5 years or less.
Yes.
And so, you know, it's something we have to contend with. Hopefully they'll be here their whole career, and they'll be the senior members before we know it. But there's a lot of good, as Corey mentioned, a lot of good budgetary information, enough to draw good questions that we can answer, you know, to the best of our ability from the community. So, and it's written in a manner that everybody can understand,
Right.
which is huge. So
It's an overview, right? You know, we have an audit that you can review. If you want to learn all about the financials, you can see our actual full budget if you have questions about that. There's plenty of other resources to get all the, you know, the details, but this is a cursory overview of that. And, you know, I didn't mention when we swore those 2 young gentlemen in today, you know, those are replacements again for you know, people that have retired. So these aren't new ads, and you can see by the number of people that have, you know, 6 or 7 years since I've been here. I haven't done the count, but, and there's folks that have come in and out of the organization on top of those folks. You see, it's we've had a turnover in our organization, and so creating that path is really important, as you spoke to Chairman Soto, and some stability, and we're going to have some more folks that are going to be hitting their milestones. As Assistant Chief Coyle just has his 20 years in. That's a milestone for people and a decision point for folks. And there's many other people in that same, you know, coming up, as you can see in that on that roster. So it's important that we continue a succession plan. It's important that we provide strong education opportunities for our folks to learn and grow from and create that solid base and have the experience that they get when they're on wildfires in other parts of the country and attending conferences and doing those things. It's a full package that if you don't look at that in a global sense, you will find yourself in a bad way someday, having an organization that's not able to really mentor and lead one another, because it doesn't have the culture and the expectations. So keen observations by both of you observing that.
I like the fact that we're going to see more and more people retire from this department, and others fill in behind them and retire healthy.
Yeah, that's the hope.
And that's the key here. And for the folks out there, when the programs here within Sedona are remarkable, but there's not. It's happened across the United States with recognition that firefighters are prone, because of their exposure to toxic substances, to cancers of all types, and many of them have experienced it. Some have had to leave the job, and so on. And this department and others like it have gone full measure for the health and welfare of these firefighters, which saves money to the taxpayer.
Absolutely, it does.
And again, Chief, thank your staff. It's obvious there was a lot of time and effort that went into this, and we appreciate it. As a board, we appreciate it all, so thank you guys.
I just gotta say thank you to their tolerance for me. I just publicly need to say that. It was midnight email last night. It was a 8:30 morning meeting this morning. That might have some ink that's not quite dry yet. That is all me and my need for particular stuff. So they do still love me, I think. And I think we still have ice cream we didn't eat.
Yeah.
But if we missed anything, it's his fault.
Definitely my fault.
The board, I'll ask that, do we want to review this for this up and coming month, and approve it next month, or do you want to do it now? Because we can make a motion to approve now if you'd like. Do it now?
Sure.
Okay. All right, then I'll need a motion then for the approval of the 2017 annual report. Anybody like to make the motion?
I make a motion to approve the 2017 annual report.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the annual report is approved for 2017.
Can I make one suggestion? If we haven't done it already, it's a very informative document in a short package to provide copies of that at the Sedona Library, because it gives a lot of information in various ways that could really help a visitor or somebody who's planning to move to this area.
We'll definitely take a look at that, and if there's an opportunity for us to place it there, we'd be glad to. It'll be on our website shortly, and there for all to see there as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Abe. Last item on the agenda is discussion possible action for the November 6th Fire Board election, published legal notice and notice of election.
Stand by.
Okay.
Carrie, this is you, Carrie.
Really gonna make me? So we have 6 candidates that are running for the 3 board positions, which means we are going to an election. And as part of that process, we have to publish a legal notice, the notice of election in the paper, so that will be getting done. I don't believe it's something that you have to approve. It's, it doesn't cost much. The money is budgeted for that. But we wanted to inform you that we do have the 6 candidates running.
Okay. And we need to make a motion to approve that.
Law doesn't require it, but it's on the agenda, so I recommend you go ahead and entertain a motion to authorize.
Okay. Then I'll go ahead and move that the Sedona Fire District published through legal notice, a notice of election for the November 6th Fire Board election for 2018. Okay. Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. We will have that posted in the newspaper.
Excellent.
Fire Marshal is gone.
I'll just say a couple things, just so it's the time of the year we've been dealing with a couple wildfires that have been in our area. We've been trying to do our best to get communications out to folks using Nextdoor and Facebook as our means of doing so. We've also been using our constant contact email list for some new newsletter type arrangements. Specific to the wildfires in the area, I just remind folks that this is the United States Forest Service land that these fires are on. Sedona Fire District does not have any authority on those lands, so we get many calls asking, why aren't we putting the fire out? Who's making decisions here? Why aren't you doing that? All kinds of wonderful things from concerned citizens who are affected by the smoke, as all we are as well. And it's really important to remember and understand that I've had a few folks say, why aren't you putting the fire out? We just were in fire restrictions. It changes like that fast, if you will, where we are in restrictions and we're out of restrictions. As we're getting the weather we've experienced and things like that, fires move very slow and are behaving much differently than they would have if we had a fire in April or May or June. These fires that are burning, the Platypus fire, the Wilson fire, although we got a lot of rain today, I don't know what happened on those today. You know, there'd be different action potentially being taken in April or May, but in this environment, the fire and fire behavior is it's completely different. We're trying to make people understand and know that if there's any danger to health or welfare as it relates to the fire itself, unrelated to the smoke, action would be taken, but the Forest Service takes values at risk, which could be
Pass that one over to him.
oh, it's back. It's back now. So the values at risk that are there, meaning the people. In this case, we had an archaeological site on the Platypus yesterday. They were worried about they burned out about 200 acres to help create a safety zone for this archaeological site, which is I think it's called Secret Cabin. And so there's lots of decision points being made, and we channel a lot of phone calls. We get a lot of emails. What's going on? Where's the smoke coming from? I think there's a new fire, and we balance that on an everyday basis to try to make sure that we know where they're at. We know what's going on. We work with the Forest Service on a regular basis, and at any point in time, if and when the public is at danger from fire, action would be taken. That's values at risk. And while it's a nuisance for many of us who don't care for the smoke, have asthma, have different things, we completely respect that and understand that. We kindly direct all calls to the United States Forest Service because that's their fire, it's their decision, it's on their land, and they make those decisions. We can't. Someone called me and says, can't you squeeze them? Can't you put the muscle on them, Chief? I don't have that kind of power. I have a relationship with them, and I can talk about him getting complaints, and we can have decision points, but I have no ability to magically make things happen at the federal level. So with that, just understand it's dry still. The lightning strikes, we're getting those. We may not see the last of our lightning strikes around here. We've had a couple. We had a wildfire in Elmersville the other day. We've had a couple other that are not in the Forest Service where we've taken action and put them out. We had one off of the Lower Loop Road a few weeks ago. So we've had a couple, and when we have authority, we put them out. That's what we do. But when it's not our jurisdiction, we go to our boundary and we can't cross it. There's certain ramifications. So that's all I have for the safety message. Only you can prevent forest fires.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. This meeting is adjourned.